Hello and welcome back to a new series of Transport Fever 2. We just finished off the last series, right at episode 100, and we're here to start fresh, start with a new map, fewer cities, so that we can focus a lot more on transporting and less about traffic, and just to sort of have a breath of fresh air. There's some new mods, some things changed around. We'll go over all that in this video, but here it is. This is the new map that we're going to be playing on. It was generated using the Fantasia Map Generator, I believe it's called, on the Steam Workshop, and I think this gives us much more interesting terrain than we've had before. We get these cliffs and mountains, as well as rivers and lakes, and it all looks very interesting, very tricky to navigate in some areas, but that's more of what I wanted to deal with playing this game, coming up with creative ways to, for instance, get this grain up to this food processing plant, and then how to get it out of that area. So that's the goal with this. We have much fewer cities compared to the last map we played. I believe there's 13 cities on this map, and the last one probably had closer to 20, maybe like 18 or 20. So this should significantly reduce the amount that we have to focus on creating roads and dealing with private transportation, and we can now focus on being much more efficient and get into much more detail with our public transportation. Since the last series, there was just simply too much going on all at once. It would have taken us hundreds of hours just to fix all the private transportation issues before we could even begin to go back to transporting cargo. So this series has some more mods like I mentioned earlier. None of them are huge changes. I'm going to scroll through the list of them, and I'll make note of some of the major mods in the description of this video. There's a bunch of custom vehicles and assets that we'll be using. Those will also be included in that list that I scroll through at some point and insert into this video. Now, I did use sandbox mode a little bit to shift some small things around just to get some things that made more sense, maybe, and to place some towns in interesting areas, as well as get rid of some in locations that I don't think would have worked starting out. So I don't plan on using sandbox mode or moving, deleting, placing cities, any of that. I don't plan on doing that at all later in this series. Maybe an industry or two if we really see an area that would look nice with something there, because realistically that makes sense. You'd be able to found an industry somewhere where it would be best suited. So we might do that with some industries later on, but we're not going to use it to game the system per se and just plop like a tools factory right next to this sawmill, and then we have a complete production chain here. That's not how I would use that. I think, for instance, placing some ore and some coal in this very mountainous region would make a lot of sense and provide some very cool, unique challenges, or maybe a log tree farm or whatever it's called in this forest area. That's sort of stuff I'm talking about, and I think that'll lead to some very interesting builds throughout this series. So enough talking about that, let's get to where we're gonna start. And I think that's going to be right here with these two cities of Scottsdale and Jackson. Now, these cities I did intentionally place here because the vision I sort of had after I saw this map generated is that these would become one city, much similar to how Clearwater and Alexandria sort of merged in our last series. So we'll have one sort of giant city right here, and that'll act as our central hub of this map, where all of our passenger transport will radiate out of, and a lot of our cargo will come in to this whole area. So that's how I envision it. We have some cities placed around here that will lead to some pretty interesting developments, such as Mesa over here on this cliffside, and Downey over here sort of shoved between a river and a cliff. So this might end up being more of a small town than a large city, and I think we'll get a lot more variety with this than we were before. So firstly, I want to promote some movement between these two cities by connecting them with a road and getting a very early passenger transport system going on here. I'm well aware that this might not be too efficient or beneficial later on, but I think setting up this connection early will really set us up for success later on. So if we connect that road there, and we delete this connection, and bring this street to connect here, we get sort of the beginning framework of how these cities might begin to merge. And we can just come back in here, reconnect that dirt road, and we can get to adding some of our passenger stations. So as we can see here, one bus stop pretty much covers the entire city, and I think we'll start it with bus stops because there's not going to be many people coming here to use it to begin with, and right now we just don't know where the development of the city is going to determine if and where we need a station. But then we can get a road depot, and I think we'll place this somewhere outside of the cities so we don't sort of have one hiding everywhere. And I'm thinking maybe placing it somewhere over here next to this industry, just because it might look a little better and make a little bit more sense to have a building like this next to some kind of industry. So then from here we can grab one of our passenger horse carriages, which will probably be these stagecoaches. We'll get 12 of those so that we get somewhat consistent movement between the two cities. So we can set up that loop, name it appropriately, and we can let that run now. So we can hit play, watch these come out of here, and hopefully within no time we'll begin to see passengers start piling up here. Alright, and the first production chain I think we're going to go with is getting food to this food processing plant and shipping it over to the city of Jackson. The city's already pretty close to the shore, so getting a harbor right in here should be just fine, and then we can pair that with a truck stop to truck the food right into the city. So, as I've said before, I want to get into much more detail when we do things. I don't want to just plop a station, add some vehicles, and leave it at that. I want to make it feel like these trucks are actually shipping grain out of here to the food processing plant. And to do that, it wouldn't take much. It's just a lot more blending of assets and other sort of accessory things through this area. So starting off, we are going to place our truck station. We'll plop that down right here at the end of the road. This seems like it would make sense. We'll have a road coming off here, so you're sort of driving into the farm to collect the grain. And so we'll come in here, get some of our terrain tools, and we'll flatten out a little bit of the area around the truck station so that we can much more naturally smooth out the terrain. So then we can blend this side. This side can stay a cliff because that's sort of what's already there. And over here we can blend that a little bit. And for at least the terrain part, it's looking a lot better around here. So what we're gonna do now is place some of these large cargo buildings. Yeah, let's go with these small ones. So we'll do 3 of the small ones. And then what I think would be cool to do here is to make these cargo storage buildings look like they're part of the farm. So we're gonna take a building asset that we have and place this barn right up against the edge of this truck station so that it completely hides those buildings, and it looks like this barn here is serving this truck station. As we can see, those cargo buildings aren't sort of poking out anywhere here, and I already think this looks a ton better than just those default buildings there. So I'm going to go through and do some more smaller detailing with trees, rocks, maybe extend some of the fields a bit more, and then we'll come back when we're ready to move on to building the road to the food processing plant. Alright, so here's what I was able to do with this truck station. We added some hay next to the barn, some silos, forested this area back here. We added this field, which we might have to clean up some of these trees out of here quick. But other than that, I think this looks a ton better. It makes much more sense in a farm, and I think overall this looks very good. So next we're going to build a road that comes off of here. We'll actually have it as a straight road to sort of cap off the farm here, and then we'll have it turn and follow along the river here. Alright, so now we have our road connecting to this food processing plant. So next, what we need to do is add a truck station here. We'll turn this around and place it somewhere kind of close to this road. Make sure it's in line with the street here. And then we can just plop this down right about there. Then the next thing we'll need to place is this cargo harbor, which should fit quite nicely connecting to this road already. And I think we'll make this a large port just for the future, helping to sort of future-proof ourselves with this, so we can allow for bigger ships to come in eventually. And now all we have to do is detail the area, and then we can set up the lines, set up our connection over here in Jackson, and we should be hopefully making money after this. And here is our food processing station. We got that big building that's probably going to hold all the food. We have some food stacked up over here. I would like to add cars sort of sitting here, sort of like they're parked. Unfortunately, I don't have car sort of assets to place, so I'll look for some of them and add them in here later on. And then over here, all we really did was add this building. It's from the steel industry, but I think it looks quite nice next to the harbor. And we just dressed it up a bit with some boxes and paving of asphalt. And I think it fits quite nice over here. and matches pretty well. So next we just need to find a good spot to put our shipyard. And this one might be a little tricky. We might actually be able to get it sort of to pop off on the end here. So it looks like it's sort of part of this complex. So we can place that down there. I think that lines up pretty well. It's raised up a little bit. We might have to... Well, it lines up with this road quite well, so I think we'll leave it here. And I don't think this looks too bad, so... We're almost ready to get all of our lines set up and start shipping food. We just need to come over to Jackson and set up the receiving end of it over here. So yet again, we're going to place a large cargo harbor here. So now we have that placed down. What we can then do is get a road set up following right along here, and then just bring it around to connect right there. And then we can get a truck station somewhere over here, hopefully. If we just select it. I think we can try to get it to fit right in here. That would be most beneficial. I do have this mod that allows me to ignore collisions, so we might go slightly bigger on this just because it will be hard to change this in the future. But we'll go ahead and place that there. And that did pretty much exactly what we wanted. We'll probably just have to come in with the terrain tool and flatten out the space in between. Which is alright. We can sort of fudge up the corners and make it look nicer with some tricks with some boxes and whatnot there. But overall, I think this is a pretty good starting spot. So we'll probably come back to this area to detail it up in the next episode. I mainly want to get this line set up so we can start making money. And in order to start making money, we need to get a road depot placed somewhere over here so we can get some trucks starting to run. There we go. Now that we have our road depot placed, we can begin to buy some vehicles. I think all these starting ones are pretty much the same, so we'll start with... Let's start with the American horse-drawn carriage. And because we need 2 grain to produce 1 food, we are going to get a good amount of horses running on this line. So we'll make a new one coming from the farm here over to the food processing plant, and then we can get a ship, and one of these, I suppose it might, I think it'll be this one, because this one has a slightly higher top speed, and we don't have money, so we'll borrow some more. Money's already starting to get tight, and then we can set up a line from here and get it to run all the way over here to Jackson. So then the last thing we need is just a few of these horse-drawn carriages, let's say 6 of them. And first, before we do that, we need to place a truck stop. So we'll come in here, truck unload stop, get that placed down right where all the food's gonna go. Although it looks like it'll probably be covered by this harbor anyway. But it wouldn't hurt to still get these on a line running through there just to cover any of the small stuff that'll pop up as the city starts to expand. Alright, now everything is starting to make its way around. We won't be making money at the moment, but hopefully soon, once these horses start to go back and forth and start to bring grain over to this food processing plant, we can begin to ship out a ton of it over here to Jackson. Now, Jackson doesn't really require that much quite yet, but as it expands, once it grows, it'll start to grow into the demand, which I think is probably for the best, since it's a lot easier to spend a lot more earlier on and make sure you have everything covered instead of constantly buying new vehicles to cope with the demand. So lastly, just checking in on the buses we put in, or I guess technically they're horses. We have some people waiting, which is good. So there's clear demand for this line. And I think if we take a look at it, we did make a profit. So exciting things already. Slowly but surely making money. And of course there will be more to come once food starts coming into Jackson. Now, of course, this is just the beginning, and there's a lot of things that I'm using here that I haven't used before, so I am learning some of these mods as I start to use them more often. I've also never gone into this much detail in some of these projects before, so any suggestions or ideas or changes you want to make to anything I make in this series, please be more than welcome to put those suggestions in the comments. And I'm very excited to get this series going. There's a lot of potential here. I think there's so many different creative possibilities we can do with detailing. I know one thing I can't wait to get to is these sort of ore and coal mines sort of in the mountains, getting in there, detailing those, making those function really well. And eventually, once these cities start to grow and get larger, setting up a large passenger hub right here between these two cities is something I'm very much looking forward to. So if you're also looking forward to this series, please let me know in the comments. But that's going to be all for this video, so if you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. Let me know what you think about the map, any of the plans I have for this series, anything at all. And if you have any suggestions or feedback, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.